Thanks for coming. Please be seated. Thanks for the warm welcome. What you're about to hear is a discussion about how to make sure America's economy continues to grow and practical ways to help employers and employees to grow the economy, to make the right decisions. That's what we're here to discuss. It's an economic lesson, but we're not using PhDs. Well, we're using PhDs in the sense that we're talking to entrepreneurs who are on the front line of making capital decisions every day, and decisions of big decisions for each person they hire. That's what we're here to discuss. Before we do, I want to thank the Chamber for allowing us to use this fantastic facility. It's a short drive from the White House, and it's a beautiful place. So thank you very much for letting us be here. I notice I've got some of my friends from the Congress here. Sam Johnson from the great state of Texas. I appreciate you coming, Sam. Congresswoman Catherine Harris from Florida. Thank you for coming, Catherine. Yesterday I had the fortune of being in Ardmore, Pennsylvania to talk about home ownership. It turns out that one of the fantastic statistics and one of the realities of our society today is more people own homes than ever before. And Congressman Jim Greenwood traveled with me yesterday. He is here today. He is here not because he particularly likes to hear his president talk. He is here because he is the author of the National Medical Liability Reform Law. And I appreciate you coming, Jim, and thank you for being here. I want to thank all the small business owners who are here. Thank you for being dreamers and doers and employers. Thank you for taking risk. And thank you for following your heart. I mean, I love the entrepreneurial spirit of America. It's an incredibly important part of our country and our future. See, the role of government is not to create wealth. The role of government is to create an environment in which the entrepreneurial spirit can flourish. And we got a lot of small business owners here today, and I want to thank you for following your dreams. I want to thank the local community leaders who are here. I hope you're as optimistic as I am about the future of this country. The reason I am is because I know what we overcome. We've overcome a lot. We've overcome a recession. We've overcome an attack on our country. An attack which, by the way, not only affected our spirit, it affected our economy. They estimate over 1 million jobs were lost after the attacks of September the 11th. We overcame those attacks because of the resolve of the American people. The American people refused to be intimidated by cold-blooded killers. We refused then to be intimidated. We refuse now to ever be intimidated by cold-blooded killers. And then we had a problem in our society, in that we've had some people that were in positions of responsibility didn't tell the truth. You might remember the corporate scandals. That affected the psychology of the country. A capitalist system requires trust. If you're going to invest, you need to trust the numbers. If you're an employee, you need to trust your employers. And yet, unfortunately, there was some citizenry that forgot what it meant to be a responsible citizen. And they didn't tell the truth. But we passed tough laws. I want to thank the people from the Congress here to help pass those laws. It is now clear we were not going to tolerate any dishonesty in the boardrooms of our country. People will be held to account, and we overcame that. And then, as you know, I made a tough decision about keeping our word and about making this country secure and the world more peaceful. And we went to war. And I committed, along with other nations, brave sons and daughters of our respective countries, to deal with a tyrant who refused to yield to the demands of the world. And now he sits in a jail cell, and Iraq is free. We marched to war, which affected the economy. It's hard to be confident about the future when you look on your TV screens and you see the banner, March to War. As decision makers and entrepreneurs, it's It had to be an unsettling time to plan for the future. When you got a country marching to war, now we're marching to peace. We're marching to peace. A free Iraq is going to help change the world. A free Afghanistan is changing the world. The world is becoming more peaceful. In other words, we've overcome a lot. And the statistics show it. We're growing. Our economy is the strongest of all the major industrialized nations. It's a growing economy. I just mentioned home ownership. We got more people owning their home ever before. We're closing there's more minority home ownership in America. And that's what we want. We want people owning something. We not only want them owning their own business, we want people owning their own home and owning and managing their own health care accounts as well. We're going to discuss that in a second. The interest rates are low and inflation is low. We had a great report yesterday on the manufacturing sector. I mean, things are looking up, but there's more to do. There's more to do. I think one of the reasons why we're doing so well is because we cut the taxes right at the right time. I went to Congress and said, look, we got a problem. We got some hurdles we got to overcome. We got to overcome a recession. We got to overcome a tax. We got to overcome all the things you heard about. And Congress responded, thankfully, and passed robust tax relief. We cut the taxes on everybody who pays taxes. We increased the child care, the child credit to help people with families. We reduced the marriage penalty. By the way, it doesn't make any sense to penalize marriage in the tax code. We ought to be encouraging marriage, not penalizing marriage. And we could put the death tax on the road to extinction, which is good for entrepreneurs and farmers and ranchers. People say, why did you do that? Well, listen, if you're a small business owner, you ought to be able to leave your assets to whomever you choose. You've worked all your life to realize a dream. You build up your asset base. You build up your company. You pay taxes when you're successful, and then you have to pay taxes again when you die. That doesn't make any sense. We want these owners of businesses to be able to pass them on to whoever they choose to pass them on to without the government getting in the way again. And so we worked hard on good, smart economic policy, and the entrepreneurial spirit is strong. And one of the reasons why is because the tax cuts pertained directly to small business owners. Most small businesses are subchapter S corporations or sole proprietorships. And when you're a subchapter S or a sole proprietorship, you pay tax at the individual income tax level. So when you hear people say we cut individual income taxes or tax on the rich, really what you got to put in your mind is these were taxes to help the entrepreneurial class of America. Small businesses benefit. And since most new jobs are created by small businesses, it makes sense to have economic policy directed at the small business sector. And the entrepreneurial class is expanding, and it's strong, and we're adding new jobs, and there's more to do. And here's some things we need to do. First, we need to make the tax cuts permanent. If you're a mother or dad who received tax relief as a result of the child credit, and you're beginning to plan for your future, it is unsettling to know that Congress hadn't resolved this issue yet. If they don't make the tax cuts permanent, they're raising the taxes on the hard-working people in America. We need tax relief. And at the very minimum, Congress needs to make sure that the child credit and the marriage penalty relief and the 10% bracket are made permanent. And I'm calling upon them to do so. Business leaders need permanency in the tax code. They don't need to be worried about whether the taxes are going to go up this year or next year. They don't need to be worried about whether or not the deductibility aspect of the tax relief remains steady or not. We need permanence in order to make sure that jobs don't go overseas, for example. We need tax code permanence to make sure that job growth is stronger at home. We need an energy bill. If you're a manufacturer, it's hard to plan if you're worried about either your energy costs or whether you're going to have energy at all. Congress needs to get us an energy bill. If they're interested in jobs staying here at home, if they're interested in creating an environment in which we're competitive, we need an energy bill. One that encourages a reliability for electricity and one that encourages conservation and helps us become less dependent on foreign sources of energy. We need less regulations. I suspect, we met with the home builder yesterday, Congressman. Remember the guy, he was like upset that he had to fill out forms at the federal, state, and local level in order to build a house. But he also made a pretty valid point. He pointed to one of the new homeowners there and said, by the way, every form I fill out costs me money and you have to pay. We need regulatory relief. I suspect these business owners, if they were honest with you, say they spend too much time filling out the forms, and I frankly can't assure them that anybody's ever read the form here at the federal level. We need to open up markets for U.S. products. See, our markets are pretty well open. Both Republican and Democrat presidents in the past have said, let's keep our markets relatively open for the consumers of the country. Now we got to make sure that if our markets are relatively open, then others need to open up theirs. It's only fair. So when you hear me talking about trade, it's really what I'm talking about is let's make sure we're treated fairly. Let's make sure the playing field is level. We can compete with anybody. At least I think so. That's why the economic isolationists have it wrong. That's why the people here in Washington see, that's the message the pessimists send. They say we better put up walls and barriers between America and the world because we can't compete. That's not what I think. I think we can compete with anybody. My job is to make sure that playing field is level and let the Americans, workers, outproduce anybody in the world, let our farmers outplow anybody in the world. We're good at a lot of things, and we ought to be selling our products. Heck, we're 5% of the world's population, which means there's 95% of the people ready for products that say made in the USA. This administration will reject economic isolationism for the good of our workers. And finally, to the point we're here to discuss, in order to make sure America remains a competitive place, in order to make sure that we can expand the job base where people can find work, in order to make sure the entrepreneurial spirit remains strong, we need to address the issue of the cost of health care. The rising cost of health care affects these good folks' ability to hire workers. And we need to address, I want to talk about some practical ways to address the rising cost of health care. But first, it's important to understand we have a struggle here in Washington. It's a philosophical struggle. It's the difference between the decision makers in health care. Who should be the decision maker? I believe strongly the decision makers ought not to be the federal government and federal bureaucrats. I think the decision maker in health care ought to be individuals and employers. And there's a philosophical divide, and it's a part of the debate. The debate is whether or not the marketplace ought to have a function in determining the cost of health care, or whether or not the federal government ought to make all decisions. I've made my stand. I believe that the best health care policy is one that trusts and empowers consumers and one that understands the market. Now, there are some things the federal government has got to do to make sure health care is reasonable and sound, one of which is to expand what we call community health centers. In other words, we recognize there are people who have trouble getting health care, and we need to address those needs. And to me, an efficient and appropriate way to do so was to expand the number of community health centers, primary care providers, for poor people in the country. And we've done so. We've opened or expanded 600 centers since 2001. There are 3 million more people now serviced by these community health centers. My goal is to open and expand another 600 by 2006. And I appreciate the Congress working on this. This is a smart way to make sure that health care is delivered to people who can't afford health care. And it's a smart way to get people out of emergency rooms. Many times people go to emergency rooms, which is costly health care for primary care needs. And community health centers work. And they make a lot of sense. Secondly, we dealt with Medicare, as you might have heard. This is an issue that had been passed on from Congress to Congress. It's an issue that people talked about, but nobody wanted to do anything about it. I felt we had an obligation to our seniors, as did members of the United States Congress, to provide a modern system, a reform system, a system, frankly, that hadn't been changed much since Lyndon Johnson first introduced Medicare. And it was high time we put a new system in place. One that said there needs to be prescription drug coverage for our seniors. I mean, after all, if Medicare covers a heart operation that costs a lot of money for the taxpayers, doesn't it make sense to cover the medicine that might prevent the heart operation from having to happen in the first place? And that's a new element involved in Medicare, thanks to the reforms of Congress. We want our seniors to have choices. There's some people in Washington who resisted that aspect of the Medicare bill because they want the government making choices for the patients. It's a different way of thinking than our way of thinking. Our way of thinking is the more choices seniors have, the better the Medicare system will become. And so an inherent part of the Medicare reform was to trust people with their decisions. And so you'll see a much more vibrant private sector involved now with the delivery of services to Medicare patients. This year we're going to put out a drug discount card for our seniors that will save between 10 to 25% off their drugs, which is positive. Next year we're going to have preventive screenings, and the next year the drug benefit will kick into Medicare. So we've addressed that aspect of medicine. Thirdly, we passed what's called health savings accounts. You're going to hear an interesting discussion on health savings accounts. Part of the purpose of this discussion is to put meaning behind, like, letters in Washington here. Oh, we got you HSAs. And the average person out there goes, huh? You know, HSA? So we're going to talk about health savings accounts to explain what they mean. They basically work this way. You or your employer buys a low-cost insurance policy to cover major medical bills. And what happens, by the way, if you trust the market, if you devolve away from federal control of health care, then the market begins to respond, and now more insurance companies are beginning to provide policies that provide coverage for major medical. And then you take that policy and you combine it with an HSA, which means you can contribute money tax-free, that earns interest tax-free, that can be withdrawn tax-free to cover other medical expenses. Now, the advantage of this plan is the tax-free is an advantage, by the way. If you're putting money in tax-free and it accumulates tax-free and you can take it out tax-free, that's the beginning of a pretty good deal for the individual. But there's also some other advantages. You're the decision maker, not a bureaucrat. In an HMO, you get to make the decisions. You get to decide. There's an incentive built in to make the right choices in your life. When all of a sudden when you see your savings account that covers your incidental costs, and the major medical, of course, covers the big costs, you begin to make wiser decisions. All of a sudden it makes sense to start walking 5 times a week to save money. It's your money. And then it rolls over and you can build up quite a healthy account. But the good news as well is this inherent in health savings accounts are savings. Savings for employers, savings for employees. And there's one way to deal with the cost of health care is to push for health savings accounts. You're going to hear an interesting discussion on this today. Another way to make sure that small businesses can survive and provide care for their employees is through association health plans. These are these would provide small businesses the same opportunity that big businesses get, and that is the economies of scale, the economies of purchase, the ability to share risk in larger pools, which drives down the cost of health care for small businesses. These plans are resisted here in Washington. They're by special interests. We're trying to bust through the special interests to make sure that small businesses have got the same advantages of big businesses. And there's some good law passed out of the House of Representatives, stuck in the Senate, like a lot of other things are stuck in the Senate. And they need to get it out for the sake of controlling health care costs. You hear a lot of rhetoric in Washington about jobs and job creation and outsourcing. But the best way to deal with job creation and outsourcing is to make sure our businesses are competitive here at home. The more competitive we are here at home, the better it is to do business at home, the more likely it is we'll keep jobs here at home. And association health plans is one such way. And there's another way we can help control the cost of health care. I mentioned Congressman Greenwood. He is fighting the ultimate entrenched interests and special interests, and that is the lawyers who love the fact that you can sue right and left in America. That's what he's fighting. He understands available and affordable health care is affected by frivolous and junk lawsuits. It's an issue. It's a national issue. When I first came up here from the governor, I said, well, we'll just let the states deal with medical liability reform. And then I saw what the practice of defensive medicine does to our budgets. Defensive medicine means we're going to practice more medicine than we need to in order to make sure we've got a good case in the court of law when we get sued. See, everybody's getting sued. It's like a giant lottery. You know, I'm just going to sue and sue and sue, and maybe I'll get lucky and win one of those settlements where I get 40% of the take. But it's harming our society. It's harming people who are trying to create jobs because it's running up their costs of their health care. And so I took a look at the cost to the federal government. Imagine what the federal government pays. We pay Medicaid and Medicare and veterans, health care costs, all of which are affected by the practice of defensive medicine as a result of frivolous lawsuits. And so I said, well, let's get to work on this issue. Let's take on the special interests here in Washington, D.C., and Congressman Greenwood stepped up and got a good bill out of the United States Congress. I said it's a national problem that needs a national solution. Congressman Greenwood responded. We basically said if you get hurt, you get by a bad doc, you get paid. The economic damages. That's fair. That makes sense. But there needs to be a cap on non-economic damages at $250,000 so that the settlements are reasonable, not outrageous. And of course, if there is a need for punitive damages, they've got to be reasonable. And Congressman Greenwood is willing to be reasonable on such an issue. Medical liability reform will make it easier for people to afford health care, which will make America more competitive a place. It means we're more likely to hire people right here at home. His bill got out of the House. It's stuck in the United States Senate. The trial bar won't let it out. For the sake of good health care, for the sake of job creation, for the sake of expanding economy, we need medical liability reform now. Ready to go, Roman? Okay, you've heard enough from me. Roman's with us. Roman, tell us your business. He's from Knoxville, Tennessee. It doesn't sound like it.
Well, yeah, I'm from Russia originally.
Are you?
Yeah.
Raised in Russia?
Yeah, raised.
Born in Russia?
Born and raised there.
Where?
Sochi, it's Black Sea.
Yeah, I know Sochi.
It's a resort area.
Yeah.
I think you've been there.
No, I hadn't been there. But Vladimir Putin called me from there. He ain't been there.
He always...
It's a nice place.
Yeah, it is.
So when did you come to the States?
Well, I'm a professional coach, actually, and I coach pole vaulting, and I coach American record holder and silver medal winner at the Sydney Olympic Games. And
really?
Yeah, so that's my profession. That's how
you got somebody vaulting in the Olympics this year?
Yeah, well, we have to upgrade our medal from silver.
Yeah.
It's only one way.
That would be gold. Okay, so you're a pole vault coach, but you're also a businessman. Well, first of all, let me just, I'm fascinated by knowing this. This is the first I've heard he came from Russia. So what age were you when you came?
Well, I actually went to Australia first when I was 19. Then I lived there for 3 years and then came here in 92.
So 22 years old.
Yeah. Fantastic.
Why'd you come here?
Well, it's a land of opportunity. United States is unbelievable country. Unbelievable. People all over the world look up to United States and see what's going on here and how the businesses. You were just talking about products made in USA. All over the world, people want made in USA. They do. And everybody dreams to come in here and test. And everybody is allowed at a good environment here where entrepreneurs can succeed. I had my business, several businesses actually, was kind of expanding and spending. And how I got in, why we have a hair design studio. We have.
Yeah, I was wondering about the hair design thing.
Yeah, finally, you know, it's third attempt. No,
okay, yeah.
No, my wife.
Is it wigs or like, you know? What is your business? Tell us your business, how you started it.
Well, my wife actually one of the best hair designers in the country, Johnny Morgan, and she started the business actually, and I kind of plugged in as a business director, and I manage, all the finances and planning, marketing, and my son is right there, Devin.
Where is he? Hey, Devin. Looks like a pole vaulter to me.
Yeah, he's taking up. He's taking up. Well, anyway, we have a hair design studio with 23 employees, and we're growing very fast, very successful. And for a couple of years, I've been looking for to provide health insurance, because we don't provide health insurance for our employees, a group insurance. And I've been looking. I promise them every month, and they ask me every month, what are we going to do about health insurance? And I sort of feel guilty that some of the guys and the girls that work for us with children don't have health insurance. And I promise them, it's going to be December 2003. I promise you, by the end of the year, we're going to find something. And it's just too outrageous. It's expensive. We, basically provide health insurance for our family ourselves. And, my wife is, mid-30s, lower 30s, and I'm 36.
She probably doesn't want you disclosing that
right.
on TV.
Well, actually, she's 27.
That's good. Nice recovery.
Anyway, and so we had a health insurance, of course, because it's a responsible thing to do, and you don't want to be left out uncovered. And health insurance cost us $385 a month for our family, for me and her and our son. And I've heard of MSA accounts about a year ago. Just accidentally, I used Microsoft Money software, and it directed me to, I believe, ehealthinsurance.com is a website that provides health insurance information, and you can purchase health insurance. And I've looked at MSA, and at the time, it was just really a confusing issue. So we were sort of on the fence. It was a little bit cheaper, but there were some issues with how many employees you can have in a business. And I was thinking, well, in 12 months, if we're going to grow beyond that, then we won't be able to have that. And so we're kind of on the fence. In September on 2003, our insurance premiums went to $485, almost $500 a month. And at that time, it was just, we're very young people. I don't believe we maybe spend $100 on doctors a year. And paying $500 a month was just outrageous. So I went back to, some friends advised me, they had looked at MSA. So I went back to that insurance website and to find out some more information. And I've run some quotes, and it came up to $177 a month. And first I thought it was some kind of fraud or something, because, and it took me a couple of days to check up on the company and stuff. And then I explained it to my wife, and we enrolled, because it was a no-brainer. It's $177 a month, plus we can contribute to health savings account tax-free. But the best part about it is that I can go and spend this money on dentist, on eye care, on some cosmetic surgeries and things like that, of that nature. I asked my dentist, as a matter of fact, after I enrolled in HSA, should I get a dental plan? And the guy told me straight away that I would probably not benefit from that. I should have an MSA. Well, I told him that I just enrolled in one. Well, he said, well, that's probably the best thing to do, because you can take this money, and previous insurance plans that we have never covered dental insurance or eye care. You'd have to buy it separately. Or any pitiful medical expense that you have to do, you have to go and apply, and it's very complicated. With this, I just write a check from my savings account, health savings account, and that's it. It's done.
Yeah, listen, here's the thing. Here's what people have got to understand. The combination of his premium payments for major medical insurance. Major medical means like if you have a real expensive problem, plus what he puts into his savings account, equals a savings of $200 a month, and yet he gets as good a coverage, even better coverage, better coverage. And that's the point. This is a new product. This is a new idea. And people, one of the reasons we're having this discussion is to encourage employers and individuals and employees to look into what is called health savings account. They used to be called MSAs. They're now called HSAs. And just again, I'll repeat Roman's story. Is he puts $177 in for his insurance, monthly premium. He puts $100 in a month for his savings account. It goes in tax-free. It accumulates interest tax-free. When he withdraws it to pay for medical bills, it's tax-free. If he doesn't use it all, he rolls it over to the next year. It's a savings account to pay for medicine. And yet he's saving $2,400 a year. It's an interesting opportunity. And I want to thank you for describing it.
It's kind of unbelievable, too.
Yeah, it is unbelievable. Just like America. Okay. Sandy Callahan's with us. She is the president of Carolina Paper and Builders Material, Inc. Just by the way, when you hear her talk, she is first of all, there's a lot of female-run businesses in America, which means the country is better off. There's a... the fastest growing component of the entrepreneurial class is women-owned businesses. They're being created like 2 times the rate other businesses are, which is really an exciting part about the country. Secondly, she's a subchapter S corporation. She's part of the rich. So here we're taxing the rich. That means we're going to tax subchapter S corporations. These are people who are actually hiring people who are expanding the job base because they're willing to take risk. And so, by the way, just as an aside, just to keep everybody's perspective properly focused, when you're running up individual tax rates, you're taxing small businesses just like Sandy. Welcome.
You are. Thank you very much. We have been in business for approximately 10.5 years. And in the last couple of years, we have gone from 6 employees to 19 employees. So we are expanding. And as a result of this, my costs have increased, needless to say, with insurance. And we have my insurance plan. My agent that I've had for 7 years has heard me whine for 7 years about the cost. And I have done some serious whining. And we were paying $8,000 a month, and that's almost $100,000 a year, which I don't need. I can be spending more wisely, you know, increasing my business by being able to afford things, to buy things the business needs, and so on and so forth. And since I had been whining to my agent, he called me in December and told me there was a new thing called an HSA, which I had no clue what he was talking about. And he said Assurance Health had initiated this, and he would like to talk with me about it. And so we agreed, and he got everything together and came over there, and after we went through with how much it would cost per person and all this, it was going to end up saving me half, 50% of the cost I was paying for the other insurance. And those people can go to the dentist, they can go to the eye doctor, you know, whatever they want to spend it on, they can. They could spend it on chiropractor, you know, if they need to go to a chiropractor, so there's no limit as to what they can spend it on as far as, you know, the dentist. And so therefore we really don't need dental insurance because we have it available with this plan. And I think I'm happy with it. I'm also happy that, you know, I pay half their premiums. That money comes out of their paycheck. Tax before anything, the money, you know, is taken out of their check before it's taxed. So they're actually getting the benefit of more dollars than they had, and then the money that they put in goes into their savings account, you know, and it's tax-free.
And see what's interesting about how a marketplace works, all of a sudden Sandy bugs her provider, and the provider begins to say, well, gosh, maybe there's a demand here for a different kind of product. We better get involved. We want to keep her business. We better come up with a new way to deal with her problems. And I think what you're going to find is that the more widespread the notion of health savings accounts become, the more carriers will start providing this kind of insurance. That's how a market works. That's in stark contrast to a government-run policy in which there is no market. It's like, here it is, as decided by bureaucracies and or law. And I thought it was a very interesting story that you've been bugging a guy for 7 years, a new product becomes available as a result of government action, which I find pretty interesting, isn't it? I guess it's the tax aspects that required government action in the first place. But, and all of a sudden these products are becoming more available. And Sandy's got one. And she is a satisfied customer. But most importantly, so are employees, I presume.
Yes, you know, we are. It was either we were going to have to do something because it was the cost of health insurance was getting prohibitive. I mean, we weren't going to be able to have it if we didn't do something.
Yeah.
Because I just can't. I mean, $100,000 a year is a lot of money for health insurance. For 19
For
people.
small business. Yeah. The other day, are you going to hire anybody this year? Yeah, hope so. Well, me too. So being able to better control costs. Dan Schmidt is with us. He's the CEO of Mercury Office Supply, St. Paul, Minnesota. How's the weather up there?
It's beautiful. You got to think of the bright side, ice fishing, the positives.
Yeah, okay.
That's the key. You got to be active in winter. Our company was started in 1962 by a man named Bill Harris. I worked for the gentleman, and his philosophy was take care of your employees, attract good employees. And Mercury Office Supply has done that over the years, and we've grown from 4 employees in '94 when I took over to 13 employees, and they've been with us a long time. And the key is taking care of your employees and making them productive in the sense that they care about their customers because they care about Mercury. And so what we've done is we've taken a health coverage where we had an HMO before. We were paying co-payments for drug coverage, doctor visits, and what have you. And about 7 months ago, my wife needed surgery, and it turned out that the HMO said, sorry, it's cosmetic surgery. And I was complaining in the office, as I usually do. And my employees came to me, and they were saying, we're having the same issues. I had one employee, she had spent up to $3,000 of her own money because our HMO would not cover it. And I said, this is ridiculous. I'm paying almost $36,000. That's what we were going to pay in 04. And I said, and they're not using it. And I thought to myself, it's time to change. And I checked into MSAs. I had people in. I was investigating. I was talking to experts in the field that I knew, insurance people, and they were saying, just wait a bit. There's things that they're waiting for, letters of ruling and what have you. And I said, okay. Well, the first year you signed the bill. We were one of the first ones in Minnesota. We signed up for it because we had done this research and took into it. And now what we do is we took the savings. We're literally saving almost $11,000 annually in this premium. We've moved it to a major medical, as you stated, Blue Cross Blue Shield. And then we took that money we saved and we funded half their deductible. They're taking that money. It's their money. They can leave. They can go with it. They can invest it. They can move it. And they can spend it the way they see fit, with whatever care they desire. It's a win-win situation for the employer.
Yeah, you see what he's saying is, what's interesting about this, that one of the great elements about health savings accounts is that all of a sudden the consumer starts being more in charge of the decision-making process. It's, as he said, the consumer can make choices, and when consumers make choices, it then encourages them to start making healthy choices. Particularly when you get to save money, when it's like your money on the line. And remember, you save money. I mean, people say, well, why would I want to put money aside when it's being paid for me? Well, the answer is because the costs of the HMO plans on a monthly basis far exceed the costs of major medical insurance plus your own savings. Because you're saving money, but you're also watching your money grow if you start making healthy choices. And people say, will there be gaps in coverage? No. You get the same amount of health care coverage. I presume your employees are not complaining about the fact that they don't get coverage.
No, and that was one of the key things. We were actually looking at, can we afford this as a small business? Are we going to have to drop insurance? And morally and ethically, I had to take care of my employees. It's just something that every American should do.
Yeah, see, you're part of the responsibility era. You see the responsibility that comes with owning your own small business. I love that sentiment. I have a moral responsibility to take care of my employees, says Dan. And that's why the country's great, by the way. There's a lot of people who have that great sense of responsibility. That's why it's important to keep the entrepreneurial spirit strong. Small business owners know that they can't survive without taking care of their employees. It's kind of a necessity, isn't it? Not only do you have a good heart, but there's an economic necessity involved as well. I want to thank you for coming, Dan. By the way, he's a subchapter S corporation, which means if Congress doesn't act, they're going to be raising taxes on people like Dan Schmidt. Employers who are looking to expand his business. He's got 13 employees. I know that's not a lot for some of the people here in Washington, but there are millions of companies that employ 13 people or less. And there's a lot of small businesses, and it's that vibrancy in the private sector that really defines a strong economy. The vibrancy of owning your own business and makes people come from Russia with a great dream. And Congress must understand that good policy is necessary to keep these people energized and excited so that the small business sector is strong. If we got too much federal government intruding into the lives of small businesses, it's going to make it hard for us to expand the job base. Now, speaking about people who are interested in expanding the job base, Patty Orzono is with us. Patty, I'm glad you're here. She owns her own business. Isn't that true?
I'm a partner with my husband for over 30 years in 7-Eleven
More
franchises.
ways than one.
Now, okay, but I'm the managing partner.
I've got that relationship in my household, too.
Mr. President, I'd like to thank you for coming back to New York last week. And New York does, excuse me, New York does love you, and we need you back.
Thank you.
I'm here actually because of my interest in associated health plans. About 8 years ago, when I became a member of the U.S. Chamber of Commerce, it was a bill that had been put into the House by, I believe, Congressman Portman, and my congressman at the time, Mr. Lazio, and I were knocking on doors all over the congressional delegation of Long Island to support such a bill. 8 years ago, the costs were at least affordable where I could afford to pay for 4 or 5 of my full-time employees. Subsequently, since those 8 years, as I've been a member of this chamber and I've seen them really push hard for this legislation, and I really see the necessity to help us to give back not only benefits to our employees, but to give them health plans that'll make them happy. And the key to success with your employees is to make them happy. The situation in my particular business has been that every year the rates rise roughly 20%, and it has priced us out of the market. And it's a situation in New York State where all the mandates have made it so costly that we've had to each year either knock off the insurance or raise the deductibles to offset the premium increases. Last year, I had roughly 3 employees on the plan, and I went to them and I said, look, we just went up another 25%. You're going to have to pitch in more, especially those of you with the family plan. Well, the single people said to me, well, what choice do we have if I don't want to pay any more? And I said, well, now I'm going to have to purchase catastrophic insurance, which is just the hospitalization. I said, I cannot afford to pay $300 a month for each one of you, and the family people $600. So with that, the family man said to me, I am going to try to seek Medicaid and purchase health insurance through the state for my children. The single people said to me, forget it, we don't want a catastrophic plan. Doesn't matter to us, okay? They're younger, they're under the age of 25, they really don't get sick that often, or they don't understand what it's about. My insurance for my family has risen an average of $80 a year. This year it went up $98, and I finally screamed at my broker, like Sandy did, and I said, you've got to do something. I can't afford $950 for my family. And he said to me, you have 2 choices. You can drop the coverage and go to catastrophic and set up a medical savings plan, or you can lower your deductibles and your co-payments. Raise your deductibles and co-payments, sorry, which will lower your premium $60 a month. But now, instead of me paying $5 or $10, I'm paying as much as $50 for a doctor's visit or for prescriptions. I had to take that road because of medical issues within my own family. Now I'm looking ahead. My business is growing for the first time in 3 years. The aftermath of 9/11 is now, we're going past that and we're rising above. I plan to increase employees. However, in order for me to offer them medical benefits and and insurance, I have been a big advocate of the associated health plans. I implore you, Mr. President, to bang the heads of those people in the Senate, because this is a no-win situation for us people in New York.
Well, I appreciate that. Listen, what you're hearing is the call for help. By the way, Patty is a 7-Eleven franchisee owner. Pays taxes, by the way, business taxes at the individual income tax rate. So when you hear them talking about going to run up these, tax the rich, that's who she's talking about right there. And she wants to stay in business. She wants to expand. She doesn't need added expenses. She's got huge medical costs already. Perhaps HSAs will help you, but more importantly, AHPs, Associated Health Plans, will, because basically what she's saying is that I need to be able to have a basic health care plan free of mandates available to my employees where I can share risk with other small business owners. That's not too much to ask, is it? To allow small business owners to have the same benefits as large businesses in America? That's what she's asking for. And frankly, that's what I'm asking Congress to do, to provide small businesses with the same opportunity that big businesses have. It's a practical way to deal with the cost of health care. It will allow this good lady to feel comfortable about expanding her business and at the same time taking care of her employees. The cost of health care, the rising cost of health care for a lot of reasons, are affecting the ability of the Patties to be able to be comfortable in her relationship with her employees and expand her business. And the option, by the way, is not to say the federal government ought to take over the healthcare industry. That would be the absolute wrong prescription. The right prescription is reasonable policy, one of which is associated health plans. We've got with us the president of R.W. Murray Company, Bill Fairchild. By the way, Subchapter S Corporation. He pays tax at the individual income tax level. The rhetoric that says, we're going to raise the taxes on a certain group of people, that's who they're talking about. They're talking about a lot of others as well, don't get me wrong, but small businesses will pay higher taxes. It doesn't make any sense to be raising the taxes on small businesses as we start to recover. 70% of new jobs are started by small business owners. Why would you penalize those who are creating the new jobs? You don't want to be doing that. Anyway, Bill?
Thank you, Mr. President.
Welcome. What do you do?
We're a commercial general contractor in Virginia. We have 34, and I'll add, fantastic employees. From day one, my goal has always been to provide the absolute best in insurance coverage for our employees. Not just good coverage, but the best. Full family coverage for our employees where they don't have to contribute at all to the premiums. And we've been able to hold on to our group of employees and have a great company because of that. We used to be able to get our insurance through our association, Associated Builders and Contractors. And it was fairly reasonable. We paid about $5,000 a year per employee for a very good plan. In 2000, ABC was forced out of the insurance business due to state mandates. So we had to go hunting in the commercial sector, typical private insurance. And we were able to find it, and we're providing a great plan for our employees. But since 2000, our premiums have gone from around $5,000 an employee to, in 2004, we're going to be paying over $10,000 a year per employee for our insurance coverage. And that's crippling us. We have increased the deductible. We have changed the copay. We're looking into health savings accounts now. But what we would really like to see happen is association health plan legislation get passed. We had a great plan before through ABC, and if we can get that passed again, that'll allow my business and the other 23,000 members of our association to pool together and get better coverage at a better price and put us on a level playing field with the big businesses, with the labor unions and the other entities that are able to get coverage nationwide because they have big big groups. As a small business owner, we aren't able to do that.
Yeah, you understand what he's saying is this, is that if you're able to spread risk, it lowers the cost of buying health care. In other words, if an insurance carrier can spread risk across a variety of people or a variety of firms, it makes it more likely his health care goes down. If he's in the market bidding for a health care plan for 26 people, it's a lot different than if you're in the market bidding along with 260,000 people. And that's by spreading risk, it reduces the cost of health care to him. That's all we're asking for, is to give small businesses the opportunity to spread risk, not only within the state of Virginia, but he ought to be able to share risk with small contractors in Crawford, Texas, for that matter. What we're interested in is a market working so that people can hire people. That's what we want. That's the public policy ramifications of good health care insurance. And the option, again, the other alternative here, you're here in Washington, is all this stuff doesn't work. Let's block this from happening because we want the federal government to make all the decisions. We want the federal government to be the decider. We want the federal government to be the consumer and the provider. And in my judgment, that would be a disaster for small businesses and consumers. It would make the health care costs more likely to go up than go down. It would mean the health care system wouldn't modernize like it has been lately, and we wouldn't be on the leading edge of innovative change. And so good health care policy first has to make a philosophical decision. We have to make this decision. Where do we want the decision makers to be? We want the decision makers to be these people right up here. This is the best health care plan is when the small business owners are involved in the market, making decisions best for their employees. The best health care plans are those in which people have control over the decision-making process. We got to trust people to manage their own health care plans. You heard me talk about home ownership. An ownership society is one that not only encourages small business ownership and home ownership, but it also encourages the ownership of your own health care plans. So you're the decision maker. And that'll help control the costs, which is a major issue as to whether or not our country remains a competitive place to do business and whether or not people who are looking for a job are able to find one. I want to thank the entrepreneurs who are here. You're a living example of what is great about America. The fact that you are able to dream and work. Thank you for being such responsible citizens. Thank you for following your dreams. And thank you for setting such a great example. May God bless you and your families, and may God continue to bless our country. Thank you for coming.